The Victorian government has warned against complacency, saying the peak may be yet to come. There were 177 new COVID cases overnight, pushing the number of active cases over 1,600. 72 people are now in hospital with the virus. 17 of them are in intensive care. There's been a rapid rise in cases at aged care homes and abattoirs, where the nature of work means physical distancing is near impossible. And now a further 1,000 ADF personnel are being sent to Victoria to help. State political reporter Richard Willingham begins our coverage.
It was a slow journey for those trying to drive out of Australia's COVID hotspot.
What is your reason for leaving the restricted area?
Heading to Torquay, we've got a building job up there, renovation.
Police have conducted 40,000 highway checks since the lockdown began. Overnight, 133 people were fined for holding gatherings and travelling outside Melbourne.
You will get caught and you will be fined.
COVID-19 continues its spread. 177 new cases today, the smallest increase for days, but it's no time to celebrate.
I'm not going to be complacent about today's number. It's great that it's lower than our peak, but it may not be our peak yet.
In a troubling trend, the virus is infecting aged care homes. Here at Menarok Life Aged Care in Essendon, there are now 26 cases. At the Glendale Aged Care Home in Werribee, there are 13 cases. At Estia Centre in Ardea, 13 cases. And at Japara Aged Care in Windsor, 2 cases. There's also a high concentration among meat workers, 12 positives at Somerville Retail Services and 5 at JBS Abattoir. Just like internationally, the second wave has swamped lower paid and insecure workers.
Communities who have lower degrees of access to the health system, that we see COVID-19 exposes those inequalities and we see significant issues with access to testing or uptake of testing that's on offer.
Workers shouldn't have to make the choice between going to work or putting food on the table. What we need right now is national paid pandemic leave.
Hundreds of people have already applied for $1,500 hardship payments. 102 of them have been paid.
It really is critically important not to come to work even with the mildest of symptoms.
Face masks are now required for Melbourne aged care staff by order of the federal government, who are providing 5 million masks as well as 1,000 extra boots on the ground.
This is to protect Victorians, to help contain the virus.
Also helping to protect the state's doctors and nurses, tests for elective surgery patients a week before they are due to go under the knife. It's a sign the message might be getting through. Streets like this are certainly a lot quieter, but some people are still holding illegal gatherings. And there's a warning from the Premier that if we don't adhere to the rules, then there may be tougher restrictions imposed on our lives. And as he says, the power to stop that is in our hands. Richard Willingham, ABC News, Melbourne.
Well, many teachers feel they're being put in harm's way by being sent back to school. VCE students across the state returned to class today, but the huge cluster of cases connected to Altaqua College has raised anxiety levels among pupils and teachers. James Oaten reports.
VCE students are back at school for term 3 with some new rules.
There you go, grab some sanitiser.
Temperatures checked at the doors, plenty of hand sanitiser and the occasional face mask.
There was some anxiety and apprehension yesterday, but as I said to them in a briefing this morning, we've done this before and we did it really well last time.
Years 11 and 12 are the only ones returning to class in lockdown areas. The government says it's to ensure pupils there aren't disadvantaged compared to those in regional areas.
Home learning was a little bit difficult. It was tough to stay motivated.
There'll be no students returning to most of the state's classrooms, but all teachers have been told to go back to school.
About half of our staff live outside of lockdown, and today they've had to travel into lockdown and mostly or entirely will be meeting over Zoom.
The government says schools can opt to allow staff to teach from home.
I would expect all staff will be at school today, but as the week goes on and staff are allocated duties, complete tasks required for remote learning for next week, I would anticipate that some of them may start to work from home to complete that work.
The increasing cluster linked to Altaqua College in Melbourne's west has many teachers on edge. 76 students there have now tested positive, along with 28 staff and 16 close contacts. More than 20 other cases are still being investigated. This Bacchus Marsh school is outside of Melbourne's lockdown, but it's decided to stick to remote learning for prep to year 8.
We have roughly 75% of our students coming from within metropolitan Melbourne. It's only prudent to reduce the load of students on site.
This second lockdown is certainly creating some familiar challenges, and schools this time are able to implement some lessons from last time. St Brendan's Primary School has a high number of students from high-rise public housing, and it's creating a sort of virtual recess to give students the ability to simply socialise to then help improve focus in class.
We have had students that have actually not seen another person from school or spoken to even for at least 16, 17 weeks.
It could be a long-term 3 for students, teachers and parents. James Oaten, ABC News, Melbourne.